There was once a minstrel, the happy-go-lucky fellow, wandering the country to sing at the courts of lords and kings. Everywhere he was welcomed with open arms.
That is the end, that is the end, that is the end of my story.
Strumming his lute and spinning his tales of romance and daring-do, he'd charm the ladies and then move on. Oh, what a life.
Yes, nice life. Except, of course, it wasn't like that at all. Showbiz was just as fickle in the Middle Ages as it is today. The tastes of audiences just as likely to change. And then, as now, behind the entertainment, there was often a political agenda. In fact, being a minstrel or a court poet was often downright dangerous.
Especially when performing in front of a hostile audience, or even worse, a hostile army, as in the case of the Norman minstrel Taillefer.
Oh, Taillefer is my name, and singing is my game. And if you want to know what a minstrel's for, here's how I got to start a war.
It's a story of one of the greatest acts of bravado of all time. Well, one of the daftest acts of bravado, if you ask me. And it took place in that field over there, 1066, at the Battle of Hastings. King Harold and his 7,000 English troops are packed behind their shield wall up on that ridge there, where Battle Abbey now stands. Duke William and his Normans are lined up in equal numbers further down the slope over there. It looks like the English have got the advantage, and for a moment it seems as if the Normans have got last-minute nerves. Nobody wants to be the first to charge. But then suddenly a figure rides out of the Norman lines. But it's not Duke William. It's not even a soldier. It's the minstrel Taillefer. And he starts riding straight to the English lines, performing a juggling act with his sword and lance. Well, the English stand there, enjoying the show, until Taillefer gets to the point where he hurls his spear at one of the English soldiers and kills him. And then all hell breaks loose. The French charge, and the rest is extremely well-known history. Considering how well known the story of the Battle of Hastings is, it's surprising that Taillefer never seems to figure in it, not even in the Bayeux Tapestry. In fact, if it wasn't for one of the chronicles, we'd have never heard of Taillefer's bravery. Then I suppose the Norman knights, whom the Bayeux Tapestry was supposed to be celebrating, wouldn't want to be shown up by a mere minstrel. But then what was a minstrel doing on the battlefield in the first place?
Well, there was a lot more to being a minstrel than just playing music. The word minstrel actually means little servant, and they were low down the social order. And in that rough and ready military culture of the 11th century, little distinction was made between those servants who could cook or do other chores and those who could write poetry or play musical instruments.
These were not particularly sophisticated courts. The warlords who ran them placed little value on fancy stuff like the arts and entertainments. Their main interests evolved around the subtleties of fighting and killing each other. So minstrels counted as little more than menials in the household, and the more talents they had, the better.
One 13th century poem defines a true minstrel as one who can speak and rhyme well, be witty, know the story of Troy, balance apples on the point of knives, juggle, jump through hoops, play the citole, mandora, harp, fiddle and psaltery. He's further advised, for good measure, to learn the arts of imitating birds, putting performing asses and dogs through their paces, and, of course, of operating marionettes. It seems it was also an advantage if you were good at breakdancing. Nothing's new.
These little servants, these minstrels, would be expected to perform lots of different roles. For example, they might be asked to act as night watchmen so they could sound the alarm in case of fire or attack. In fact, in 1306,
a minstrel by the name of Richard raised the alarm at Windsor and prevented the castle from being burnt down. Pity there weren't a few minstrels around in 1992. Servants who could blow a trumpet would also have been vital amidst the cacophony of battle, to rally the troops or cheer them on. Away from the battlefield, these same servants provided the entertainment, though with rather a restricted repertoire. You see, the warriors and warlords of the 11th century weren't particularly interested in stories of teenage love, or stories about how someone who, despite appalling handicaps, manages to become a concert pianist. What they wanted was stories about men like themselves killing other men, like the ones they killed that morning, preferably with lots of gory details and swaggering about. Medieval minstrels were the PR men of their day. They'd embark on well-planned tours, reciting their poems to publicise the latest achievements of their bosses.
Simon de Montfort is mighty and strong. He loves to do right and he hates to do wrong.
Of course, the minstrels didn't let the truth stand in the way of a good story any more than the spin doctors of today do. Henry II's favourite minstrel, for example, went by the name of Roland le Péteur. Henry rewarded Roland with 30 acres of land for his great masterwork, described as a leap, a whistle and a fart. It appears that Roland's great musical talent lay in farting tunes.
These were not highbrow entertainers. Have a look at what's going on here. Everyone's looking at everyone else. These guys are looking at these guys, and they're looking at the king, who's counting down 1, 2, 3, wait for it. In England, the fortunes of the minstrels probably reached their zenith in the reign of Edward II. Edward, whose father tended to be away rather a lot, was brought up by a nanny whose other job just happened to be a court minstrel. Maybe this explains why Edward grew up as one of the biggest fans minstrels ever had. The sophisticated culture of the troubadours and the fashion for writing and composing poetry in the native language spread across the courts of Europe. The whole nature of court entertainment was revolutionised. Kings and princes now saw that their realm was no longer defined by simple geographical boundaries, but that they also ruled over an intellectual territory, the territory of literature and song. And a new breed of court poet began to replace the old rough-and-ready minstrels. The old-style minstrels began to find they were no longer fashionable. They had to go down market. They did indeed become wandering minstrels, traipsing around the land in search of an audience. But the happy-go-lucky medieval entertainers of our imaginations don't seem to have been so happy-go-lucky after all.